Hey, so today I want to talk about a tactic that's not only used by narcissists but insecure people overall. Not all manipulation is so subtle and cunning. Often it can be loud, aggressive, and overall exhausting. Today I'm going to be discussing defensive aggression, or I might refer to it as DA for short. The operative word being defensive. This is when someone uses verbal or even physical force to settle a dispute. Most of the time, in this case that we're talking about, it's going to be verbal. It can look like screaming, insults, threats, yelling, slamming things, and yes, sometimes physical aggression. Now, it's easy for most of us to get caught up in the moment and fall into our fight or flight when someone gets like this. Or it may be the reason why we get like this, or we can get like this. But it's important to understand where this truly tends to come from. DA tends to come from a deep-seated feeling of vulnerability. Anger, often considered a secondary emotion, is used as a defense mechanism, and it's triggered in a response to protect oneself to a perceived threat, whether that threat be physical, emotional, and/or mental. This doesn't mean that every expression of aggression or anger is toxic or dangerous, but in general, anger does tend to lead to aggression, and this aggression can manifest in many ways for many reasons. A simple example we can all relate to: you're driving on the road, someone cuts you off, you hit the brakes, you flip them off, you cuss, you swerve, you get mad. Now, rationally, you know that that's not a rational way to respond, but in the moment, you feel completely justified in that reaction, typically knowing that they're not going to do anything to you. Now, this can be from a sense of entitlement, forgetting that we're human and people make mistakes and that you likely make the same mistakes, but it could also be a response to fear or perceived threat, almost getting into an accident, which causes us to lash out. Anger tends to be a great release of tension, but it's not often healthy if it's not controlled. I'll touch on it a little bit in this video, but I do want to talk more about anger and what tends to cause it, like the root causes of anger. But in the context of relationships, disagreements and arguments can often lead to aggression and high emotion. We and others tend to revert to this when we feel exposed, threatened, hurt, sad, frustrated, shamed or embarrassed, and even guilty. In general, when we feel attacked, or two, when we're just exhausted or hungry, irritable. But so often, what we feel isn't indicative of reality. That doesn't mean that your feelings are invalid, but they can be a response to a perceived threat that may not actually exist. Now, if you sense somebody is getting hostile with you or aggressive, there's a few things I've learned to get through this. Also, these are things to think about if you tend to get this way. Also, side note, if you ever feel like you're in danger or threatened, get out there, get out as soon as you can, get yourself away from the situation, and get yourself somewhere safe. So these are things to think about. 1, don't judge the person, judge the action. You can set a boundary while still understanding someone's point of view and how they feel. 2, allow them to vent, allow them to speak. This requires patience. Do not immediately respond to what they say. You can be quiet and ask questions on how they feel when the time is right. I know it doesn't seem fair, but people are more likely to calm down when they feel like they can express themselves and be heard or understood. 3, find out what's triggering the aggression. This one's pretty difficult to do in the moment. Is it something you did or something you said that was small but probably taken out of context? Does this person often get angry or aggressive? Do you tend to be calm and reasonable and they tend to overreact? If these are true, then the issue likely isn't you. But you still need to be able to separate yourself to see what's actually happening. For someone who lashes out, there's always a deeper reason. And there's a likely chance it may have nothing to do with you exactly. But to be fair, we often tend to ignore the things that we do and say that tend to drive people to being upset or angry. This doesn't justify abuse or violence, but we are responsible for our own feelings. But in our relationships, and even to strangers, we are at least partially responsible to how we treat each other. We are empathic social beings. We do affect each other emotionally. I don't care who you are. Ask yourself, are you a good listener? Do you allow your partner or your opponent, as we talked about last time, to speak uninterrupted? Do you tend to poke and prod somebody to anger? Do you tend to feel angry and want them to feel how you're feeling? Do you chronically judge or criticize people, especially when there's a discussion about a situation that's not being addressed, as mentioned in the previous video? Are you as compassionate with others as you think you are? In most cases, conflict is a two-way street, and this is no way to victim blame, but I'm just saying these are all things we have to think about ourselves first before we can put them on somebody else, outside of the most obvious extreme examples, of course. Listen for key phrases and behaviors. Aggression isn't always over the top or violent. You can listen for tone, language, body language, tactics such as blame shifting, right? Shifting the blame to something else. Like, what about you? Well, you did this. Well, how about when you did X, right? Form of deflection. Absolutes. Like, you never do this. You always say that. You've never done this. What aboutisms? Like, well, what about them? They do it. What about other people? Or what about what you did last week? Those things by themselves are not always an indicator of manipulation or aggression, but they are clues. You could even listen for sarcasm or snapping or straight up just insults. Constant interruptions, unable to control body movements, raising of the head and hands. Remember, we have to ensure that we're not doing this too. It's easy for us to get worked up over many different things. It's what makes us human, but being aware of these things is the start to fixing them. Because just like we may feel justified in our anger and our tendencies, the person who feels upset, if they're acting out some sort of aggressive tendency, very likely in that moment feels justified as well. Who's right? I personally don't believe aggression is good or bad inherently. Sometimes it's very necessary for action, protection, or taking control of a situation that's probably gotten out of hand. Just be mindful, there's always reasons why people get angry or aggressive. Again, most of the time as a response to a perceived threat to one's identity or physical safety. It could also be a fear of consequences or punishment, and it is a lower emotionally attempt to regain control. And it's automatic, it's not calculated. Oftentimes a behavior learned from a very young age to protect oneself. Now, if you may struggle with this, you need to be honest with yourself. Ask yourself questions as to why certain things bother you. It is very difficult to do this in the moment, so having time set aside each day for mindfulness is very important. Next time, I want to discuss more in depth the root causes of anger. As again, anger is a secondary emotion. There tends to be primary emotions that lead to anger, and therefore aggression. Love y'all. Stay aware and stay tuned.